You've caught yourself up in a predicament. You have bought too many fragrances. Don't worry, friend, we've all been there. You start getting into fragrances as a hobby and you realize, oh, this is so cool. Things smell so different to each other and there's so many cool things to see and read about online. You end up buying way too many fragrances. You have loads of fragrances that you just don't use anymore. They're gathering dust and now half your room is cluttered and you can't have any space to breathe or sleep properly, and now you're just a hoarder. And now you're like, okay, what do I do with all these fragrances? There's too many and they're just pointless. By the time you are watching this video, Atrium Fragrance's Mr. Majestic is now out for pre-order. From the Monday to Friday of this week, this is the only time you can ever purchase Mr. Majestic. This is a fragrance that's going to be made to order in the pre-order campaign. And we already have around 500 notifications of people who want to buy the pre-order, and based on previous campaigns, the number that correlates to ends up being quite accurate to the number of people who end up pre-ordering. Bear in mind, Mr. Maritime sold out in less than 2 days. Atrium is all about pushing forward the new ideas in the fragrance industry, making us go to new concepts and being creative in our releases. So if you want to come and join us on this journey, go to Mr. Majestic's product page and link down below and click order now, because it's the only time you can ever get it, and you get a 2 ml sample with it so you can try the fragrance before you open the main products. This is a gorgeous masculine take on the plum note that I feel is underrepresented in men's perfumery. So we've done an introduction video of Mr. Majestic, we've done a public reactions video of Mr. Majestic, so you can check them both out if you need more information, but make sure you go ahead and order sooner rather than later. So what is one to do with all these fragrances that they don't want anymore? In this video, we're going to cover 5 tips that I will recommend to you guys for decluttering your collection. I'm always the guy who's about getting quality in your collection, not quantity. I say be careful with your purchasing as someone who over-purchased himself, and just make sure you get stuff that you really love. I don't really care about these fragrances making you smell super sexy, getting you compliments. It doesn't really matter. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of those kind of fragrances on the market. I don't think it matters that much. I think go for something that's cool, it fits your personality, and it's creative. I think that's the most important part about fragrances. Let's begin our 5 tips. The first 3 tips of this video are going to be about prevention, to not get into this trouble in the first place. Because as they say, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Tip number 1 is make sure you're actually going online and seeing reviews of fragrances. I know this sounds very basic and common sense, but be careful with fragrances. A lot of people do like to blind buy. Don't just rush in without doing a little bit of research. We're in the modern day of the internet where all of us can learn about anything really quickly and easily now. So go on YouTube, look up School of Scent. I don't know much about him, but I think he's a pretty good reviewer from what I've heard. Any YouTube reviewer in general. Go on Fragrantica. I know Fragrantica has issues, but it's still a very good tool to learn about fragrances. Go see what people are saying there, the ratings they're giving it, the descriptions they're giving of the fragrance. Some people will love a fragrance, some people will hate it, but just see the overall vibe people are describing of a fragrance. Look at the notes, see if it's something that sounds interesting to you. Tip number 2 is, first of all, look at your collection and look online of any new fragrances you want to get and see if fragrances are similar to each other. Because, as I've said in previous videos, some fragrances are redundant to purchase if you already own a certain fragrance already. Something like, for example, let's say I ordered a Versace Pour Homme. It's an aquatic, clean, everyday, fresh scent. I wouldn't recommend someone to go buy a Chanel Allure Homme Sport. You don't really have to. You only really need one of those 2. So we did a previous video on that. You can go check it out if you want to. But basically, look at your collection, because you want to know what, if you're going to declutter your collection, which fragrances should you get rid of. Look at the stuff that you think smells similar to each other, as in a similar style. They don't have to be clones, just things that you think to yourself, okay, they smell very similar to each other and I'm only reaching for one. So if you're only reaching for one of them, you should probably get rid of the other that smells similar to that first fragrance, if you know what I mean. And of course online, go look at the scent families of these fragrances. You know, look at the top of Fragrantica. What accord are people describing this fragrance as? If you've already got like 10 aquatic fragrances in your collection, you don't need to add more clutter to your collection by buying another aquatic that smells very similar to your Acqua di Gio. Tip number 3, our last prevention tip, is get samples. Go online. Most countries around the world have sample websites. You can go and access a fragrance and try it out before you commit to buying it and, you know, cluttering up your collection. And also, it's quite nice to have samples, just because sometimes you can just appreciate a fragrance and like it, but you don't need to necessarily buy a bottle if it doesn't speak to you that much. You can say it's nice, but hey, it's not necessarily bottle worthy for me. For example, I've got my little sample here of Tom Ford's Plum Japonais. Love it, great fragrance, but it's discontinued. So getting a sample is great, and I haven't really cluttered it up in my room because I've just got a little sample that I can just wear and then move on, which is great. So get samples, go find a nice, reliable, authentic sample website that's local to your region or delivers to you, and just go and try lots of samples. You don't need to keep buying loads of full bottles because you will regret it financially and mentally, because you got too much clutter in your room. Okay, so now you've established you have a problem and you want to get rid of your fragrances. So what are one of our first active tips here? The first active tip you can take, so tip number 4 of this video, is just gift your fragrances. Don't care, just don't think too much about it. You've already spent the money, so most of the time you're just like, okay, if you're really frustrated, you just want to get rid of stuff. And there are more important things in life than money. Money is important, but having a nice feeling of gifting your fragrance to a friend or family member is really nice, because I've had friends who I've gifted them really expensive niche fragrances that are worth hundreds of pounds. To them, they are appreciating a new style of perfumery and much higher level of perfumery as well. They've been introduced into the world of fragrances now. You've just spread the love and joy of the hobby to someone else. They have a new signature, and now they realize, okay, there is a lot of potential in this fragrance game. It's much better than what I thought it was previously. So they thought, everything was like a 40-pound Hugo Boss fragrance, but actually now they've got this Sospiro Vibrato, and this fragrance has now just blown them away. So you really can change someone's life, and it just feels nice to share that gift with someone else. And of course, there's the added benefit of clearing up your space. I quite like it, I quite enjoy it. I also gave another friend Sauvage Elixir. I sprayed it on his wrist. He was like, I love this fragrance, which was great because I personally hate it. So even it's a good fragrance, I like it. It's not bad, but like I hate it as a personal subjective thing. So I gave it to him and he wore it often. He loves it. He was very happy. It's like, wow, for him, he's like, he never had like that kind of level of perfumery before in his life. So he's just like really impressed. So it helps me, it helps them, so it's a really easy way to get rid of your fragrances if you don't care about money that much. Tip number 5, okay, you gift it to friends and family and you realize you only have about 2 friends and you have run out of people to gift fragrances to. So you still have a big clutter of collection and you need to get rid of them and you want to make some money, let's say. This is a very important tip. I always say, guys, go to Facebook swapping and selling groups. These are groups where communities of fragrance aficionados local to your region, so you have to search up the group that's local to you. They all gather around and they have loads of fragrances in their collection. They all have the same problem, they want to declutter. So what do? They sell fragrances, often partial bottles, so let's say the bottle is half full, they sell them for a really good price. Often not even trying to make any profit at all. So most of the time people just want to get rid of their stuff basically. It's a great way for you to buy fragrances for a bargain. So don't go too heavy in this direction. This video is all about decluttering, so don't get obsessed, but this is a great way for you to be that seller yourself. Go sell to your local community. You can sell bottles and people will buy them off you as long as you give them a good price for it. People often use PayPal and it's extremely rare to ever get scammed in these groups. And that concludes this video, guys. Did you find these tips helpful? Are you annoyed by the number of fragrances you have in your collection? I know I'm a kind of guy who likes to be a little bit minimalist in his lifestyle approach. I don't like having clutter in my room. Apart from fragrances, I'm actually very much like, hey, I'll have one of everything. I don't really need to have like 20 different pairs of trousers or like 100 different shirts. I really like to keep my life quite minimal. And I enjoy, appreciating the finer things in life, taking things as we go slowly, taking our time and appreciating quality over quantity. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our previous video on the ultimate fragrance buying guide that relates some of these tips as well. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.